Homily for the 8th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Year C. By their fruits ye shall know them. Our readings for this Sunday are from the book of Sirach, chapter 27, verse 4 to 7, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 54 to 58, and the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 6, verse 39 to 45. We Christians are sent out as witnesses of Jesus Christ. Matthew chapter 28, verse 19 to 20. We are called to live daily in accordance with the faith we profess and teach. Our conduct must be consistent with what we say we believe. As we proclaim our faith in the God of love, we cannot live by hate. As we proclaim our belief in the God of purity, we cannot engage in lives of impurity and unchastity. And as we proclaim our faith in the God of truth, we cannot live a lie. Our practical lives must be consistent with all that we say we believe. Our first reading reflects on human behavior and the kind of hearts from which such behavior emerges. The state of our hearts can be assessed by our words and actions in the same way as one can assess a tree by its fruits. Jesus challenges his disciples and his followers to live lives of integrity and to produce the fruits of the new life which they have received, since it is the inner reality of a tree that is reflected in its fruits. Bearing fruits. Occasions of joy and satisfaction, of provocation and frustration, of disappointment and betrayal, and of failure and loss often bring out who we really are on the inside. Our readiness or otherwise to forgive hurts and let go of offenses, for example, or our excessive attachment to material possessions will easily show the kind of persons we are. Our reluctance and often our failure to defer gratification does speak volumes about the quality of our Christian conversion, no matter what we claim we believe. It is important for us to spend time to reflect and to regularly look at ourselves and to correct whatever needs to be corrected, because we cannot guide others if we are blind ourselves. This is why the church recommends that we develop a habit of regular examination of conscience, especially before the close of each day, before we approach the Lord in the Eucharist, and as we prepare for the sacrament of reconciliation. Such self-examination is very critical, for as Socrates says, an unexamined life is not worth living. From the abundance of the heart. Now, just as a good tree produces good fruits, so does a good heart produce goodness. From a kind, loving heart, we find kind words and kind actions. From a humble heart, we find words of truth, not self-adulation, not self-flattery or vainglory. On the other hand, violent and bitter words often reveal a heart full of bitterness, or one poisoned with hate, for from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The Christian who lives like Jesus will reflect St. Paul's teaching that when the perishable puts on imperishability and the mortal puts on immortality, then, quote, death is swallowed up in victory. 1 Corinthians 15, 54 and 55. Jesus died and rose from the dead to give us abundant life, a life of selfless love, mercy, compassion, goodness, kindness and generosity, humility, obedience and surrender, service and sacrifice for others, justice, peace and non-violence, as well as brotherly concern and human solidarity. To live in this way is to bear the good fruits of the resurrected life of the kingdom. The moral authority to proclaim the gospel comes from the truth we profess and the consistency of our words with our attitudes and our actions. Such consistency is a compelling testimony before others. This is what is required of Christians every time and everywhere. Such transparent reflection of gospel values in our conduct is what makes the gospel believable in every generation. Unfortunately, on account of the sting of sin, which St. Paul refers to in the second reading, we often fail. Now and again, we fail to reflect this consistency and transparency before the world. The wages of sin is death, says St. Paul, but Jesus has conquered this death for us. We are therefore admonished to be steadfast, immovable, always excelling in the work of the Lord. Putting our faith into practice, even in difficult and disconcerting times, will be a powerful testimony before unbelievers. This is the way to build up the moral authority which Jesus demonstrates so abundantly. We are challenged today to emulate Jesus, our teacher, and to be men and women of integrity with Jesus as our master and our model. Jesus' love is true. Jesus' love is authentic and selfless. We cannot claim to be his followers if our love is often selfish, self-serving, and exploitative. No disciple of Jesus can be preaching conversion to others who is not himself or herself engaged in an ongoing process of self-examination, self-criticism, and ongoing conversion. We cannot criticize or judge others until we have done a good dose of self-assessment and self-criticism, until we have set for ourselves much higher standards than we set for others. We must ensure that we have taken the log out of our own eyes before we become preoccupied with the speck in our neighbor's eye, as Jesus says. To exert higher standards on others while turning a blind eye on our own faults or readily finding excuses for our own poor performance is condemnable. Self-criticism is an essential part of genuine relations with other people. People will pay more attention to what we have to say when they see that we are aware of our own shortcomings and that our criticism does not emerge from any sense of self-righteousness. Jesus teaches us that criticism must come from the store of goodness in our hearts. If such goodness is absent, then we are better off keeping silent, because sharing a bad heart will not lead to the conversion of anyone. Our vocation is not to be professional fault finders and critics, because critics are hardly ever the ones who reform the world. We should put our houses in order first before attempting to put someone else's house in order. And may the Lord bless us. Amen.